As long as it holds up in court. Welcome, everybody. Week 2. Big head boy.
Big head boy.
Where you at?
Yeah.
We're going to start with a word randomly generated. See where our hearts go.
You want to know what the word is?
I do.
Repay.
Repay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have we talked about money at all?
No, not directly.
We talked about... Well, okay, you've had a couple things come your way this week, or the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Do you want to share those to a degree?
I think what I can share about them is a conversation I also had with somebody who knows they have some freelancing in their future and stuff that I've learned from you as well. But basically just learning to value yourself.
Yeah.
What your worth is, what your time is worth, and the context of that within like juggling multiple projects, and how to handle that sort of thing. It's tricky because like you don't want to feel like you missed out on an opportunity, but you also don't want to get trapped in a not fun situation of having to work on something that you feel isn't worth your time or effort. It is definitely like an experience thing. You know how long it takes you to accomplish X, and a lot of that just kind of swirls together into like how you sell yourself and communicate.
And I think it's also relative. Like what you just said sparked the idea of like, yeah, you're always going to have growing pains, even with like when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. In the same way or when you're getting paid for a job, because it's not always going to be favorable for you at the start.
In that sense, like the word repay can also go into like you got to pay your dues. Like spend some time doing things. Not great deals, but it's good experience. And you have to put in that effort when you're like just starting out. And it's tough because like I remember taking jobs. I'm like, what if I can't do it? Like, what if I can't give them what they want? So I would charge really low just in case.
That makes sense. I mean, I get that, but at the same time, like, yeah, I guess it depends on where you're at. Because I'm at a point where if you ask me to do something,
you can give quality.
I know I can give quality, and like, whether I've done it or not before, I know I'm confident in figuring it out.
And that confidence is just another part of like the growing pains. Like you have to earn that confidence.
Yeah, because we actually wanted to do this episode. Now that I think about it, because you were going through that, and we were.
Yeah, true. We were like, let's save it.
Yeah, Yeah, Carlos and I's personal life is like awful. Like we're not even friends in real life anymore.
No eye contact ever.
Every single time. Every single time that we... Ow! Every time that...
Oh, man.
Every time that Carlos and I are hanging out and we like get like into a cool conversation, it's just always like, no, save it for the podcast.
Like, stop.
Save it for the podcast. This is great podcast material. You're ruining it. No, but we were talking about Carlos's stuff that he was getting, and I was like, there's a lot of things that go into like how you should charge, and like, because a lot of people think it's just like, oh, what do other people charge that are doing similar art to me, or like what's the industry standard? But I think that's boring and also kind of stressful to like not understand exactly what you're doing, and it feels like you're not in control of what you're doing.
Yeah, you're more at the behest of like what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And that's subject to change, and it's inconsistent.
Yeah, but if you can create your own like rule set that you have experience with, that definitely goes a lot further in my mind.
Yeah, so like I was offered a rate that was lower than what I wanted, and I was upfront about it, and I said, okay, I usually charge this for that, and they didn't budge on it, and I decided, okay, nope, can't do it, sorry, but left the door open. It's like, hey, in the future, if you think things could fit better, we could work together. Hit me up. And they're like, cool, thanks, good luck with everything. And it was very amicable, but at the same time, I'm glad that, I didn't have to devote now a certain number of time a week for, not enough compensation. I gotta eat, I gotta do stuff, so.
And that kind of goes into what I was going to say of like, I think it's mostly relative to how you value your time. That's how I like charge my rates, is like I have a business that I have to pay other people with, and that makes me make my rates higher too.
Right.
But if it was just me, I'd probably go lower, if I'm being honest.
Gotcha.
I'd be more comfortable with that at least.
That makes sense.
But yeah, most of it has to do with how I value my time. Like, And sometimes it just comes with like how in demand you are and like the opportunity cost that comes with that, I guess. If you're working on a gig that takes 40 hours a week from you and you're making $50,000 a year and somebody comes along you and they can give you more than $50,000 a year, then it's like, oh, well, maybe it's worth it. Or if you're working less time on it too. And like, if you put it in those terms, I think it makes it a lot easier to like think about it in that way. But I think a lot of people also don't consider their time and like their life and like what they need to survive towards to like make that work. Because a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, like $5-10 an hour, that sounds great. Maybe that is fine for your living situation. But if you have rent to pay and your rent is $2,000 a month, then it's like, oh, $5 per hour isn't going to cut it.
Right.
If you like add up all of your expenses and also add up the things that you want to do, like if you have kids, if you have a family that you have to take care of and pay for, I think all those things are absolutely viable for you to include in your rates.
Yeah, and you have to imagine most people, I think, intelligently budget for the unexpected as well. You don't know. My car battery just died on me. That was $200 that I had to drop unexpectedly.
And that $5 per hour, that's 40 hours of work.
And those sort of real life things are what I used to think like, oh, I don't need a lot of money. I'll live within my means. And for the most part, I do and I can, but life is more than that. And it's fair to ask for rates that you feel you deserve because you want a quality of life. And something that stuck with me too was a post that said, when you charge less for your work, you're undervaluing the entire like community of people who do that thing, because someone will say, oh, well, this guy did it for half that price. Well, sorry, that guy didn't value themselves the way I do.
I personally don't think that holds up as much as people think it does. I think there's truth to that, and I think that people, I stand by that, and like that is a reason why I like to charge more. But I think that at the end of the day, quality is going to persevere through everything.
I think that just tends to be more prevalent in like art, like Instagram, like people DMing for like commissions and stuff like that.
That's fair.
People who like
I guess
probably
there's
DM a lot of different artists.
It depends on the group, I'm sure. Yeah, that's fair.
But value your time and don't be afraid. It's something I'm still working on.
Everyone is.
It's tough to ask a price and then think they might be like, okay, nope, just kidding, I'm out, and then you miss out on opportunity. But
I will say at the same time, like, although we are like, I mean, I think a lot of this can be summed up to just having high standards for yourself and like being sure to value yourself when you're working. But at the end of the day, if you've never landed a gig before, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it for free. What's more valuable, making $50 or getting the experience of working on with a team on a game or like on a project or something?
Yeah, that's just another like element of how you value your time. Like, is your time worth experience? Is your time worth money? What stage are you at where one or the other will weigh more, and just being aware of that and talking to other people in similar situations will help you gauge it.
Yeah. I think there comes a point where you need to stop like doing things for free and such. Like you said, it does like decrease the value of things.
Yeah. And it sets a precedent that you don't want to be stuck in, where if you start a lot of working relationships with people at like a free price and then suddenly start to dial it up, hey, I have rates now, or it's okay to raise your rates over time and stuff, but you also don't want to blindside people or give them expectations that you can't meet anymore.
I think with stuff like that, it's always good to be like, hey, starting this month, no more free stuff.
Right.
And then this is actually something interesting that is a statistic found in like my friend Tim Ruswick, Game Dev Underground. He did a video on this. He released a game. And this can be applied to just commissions as an example. But he found that games that are priced higher, they sell less copies, but you make more money.
Right.
So like with game dev, it's kind of interesting because community is so important in the game development world, and you want to sell enough copies to where you have that community, but you also want to like
That's true.
have that balance to make sure you're making enough money with that.
To be able to maintain the studio costs and produce more games long term.
Yeah. But I feel like that can be applied to commissions as well, to be like,
sure,
if you're doing it for free,
you're gonna get a lot.
If you're doing it for free, then you're you're going to get a lot of work, but then you're also going to get a lot of outreach, I feel like. And then eventually, if people like your work enough, they're going to probably want to pay for it.
So there's Schoolism is like an online art education resource, and you can, I think they do like live classes, and then they upload the classes or something, and you can retake those courses, and so you do their homework or whatever, and you can learn through that. So I was looking it up, and you can access the courses for like a certain, like 25, 35 a year or something really doable. But if you want like feedback from the instructor, like one-to-one, it's like $1,000. And at first I was like, that's insane, but I totally get it, because few people are going to pay that price. And it only takes like one or two people for the instructor to feel like it's worth their time to give that one-to-one time.
And on top of that, it becomes like, for me, like I cannot do music for less than a certain amount. It's so much work to make a music. Like a single minute of music takes so much time. And I just totally get that. Like people will say like, oh, your rates are really high. And it's like, if I do it for anything less, I'll regret it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's something you have to feel out. And I think that's a pretty good, like, take some time to get an understanding for like that feeling. And like to remove the kind of, it definitely takes time just to remove that kind of like stress, I guess, or like some experience to be able to be like, oh, like you might be living at home with your parents or something, right? Like it's hard to like really value money when you're living at home with your parents.
Right.
But like when you actually have to like make things work, it's like, oh, doing this for $300 or $200 just isn't going to cut it.
Yeah. I've had moments of like, I'm eager to sit down and draw it because I'm like, cool, I'm going to get paid after this one. Like,
yeah.
And it's a reality that like when I was like a little more naive, I'm like, I don't want to be a slave to money, but like you need money to do stuff. And it's okay to ask for it and enjoy it and, put in the work for it.
Yeah, it does suck, to be honest. Like it, I mean, we talked about this in like the very first episode, I think. We were just like, oh yeah, money it stifles and puts too much of a limitation on your creativity.
Sure.
Or you're just like the kind of energy that you want to put towards it. And that sucks. That really does suck. But at the same time,
that's the reality.
Yeah. But that's just the world we live in.
Ideally, you put in that groundwork, but then you get to a point where, you have the experience, the tenure, you put in the work to have earned like the freedom. That's ultimately like the goal, right?
Yeah.
Artistic freedom.
Yeah. Fair.
Work on your own stuff. And it's just one of those things you have to fight for. Or get really lucky.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there is a factor of luck there too. Like we talked about Blipsound's relationship with Google and all that. I mean, that's luck. Like that's straight up luck. Like to be connected like that. Like that's not in my control. And I think there are a lot of people that are lucky and like somebody like, okay, Justin Bieber like getting popular or something like that.
Or Usher
like,
seeing him and being like that guy.
Like what are the chances, And like I guess you could look at it as unlucky if you really want to, but
right, yeah, it's quite a burden.
I'm sure I would not want to be that famous.
Nope.
Like I would not want to be quote unquote lucky in that sense.
You can like sometimes just look at pictures and he just looks so done with it all and like tired. Like, rest, my man, rest.
I mean, he's just. I feel like there's a certain idea of like when you're trying to grow and get big. Once you do get big, you have like the following. But then you don't have like a core reason for why you did that thing.
Oh yeah, it can be like
I feel like that eats you up.
You lose that hunger.
James Portnow and I talked about this a little bit, and he was like, "Yeah, you don't try and get famous on YouTube,
Right?
Like you don't. That just happens by luck. Like you can try and build your outreach and stuff, and that's fine. But like, if the core of what you're doing comes down to getting famous,
I want that. Yeah.
Then when you do get famous, you're gonna be empty inside.
You have nothing to stand on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've always felt that way. Like, first and foremost, I want to know what my motivations are. I want to know why I do something, and I want to be sure that it's for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Because that lasts. The temporary motivations they're temporary. You'll get wrecked in the long term if you buy into those too hard.
Yeah, I agree. It's so weird because, like, I think about it from Blipsound's perspective, and like with Blipsounds, I have to. Like, you need numbers at the end of the day. Like, you need that outreach, and you need to be able to, like, have people viewing your stuff. And, like, when you have more people seeing your stuff, there's more money. And it's kind of hard not to focus on something like that, too.
Right.
That's weird.
It just comes with, like, the reality of what the world demands. If you could live on like on an island and just do your art,
And not
how do you
worry
think that
about
would affect what you produce and how you're motivated?
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I do think that like the necessity of having to support yourself leads you down avenues that you probably wouldn't take, and you definitely grow from things and learn in ways that you wouldn't push yourself to normally, I think.
Yeah.
But we're always going to want that like little cabin in the woods to just create.
That's my dream, man. I literally just want a house in the middle of nowhere in the mountains and just a room filled with music instruments.
Right.
That's like, seriously, I've wanted that for the last 5-6 years.
He wants to be Snow White. You just want a bunch of little dwarves just running around your house.
Yeah,
naked.
do everything for me.
It's funny because the 2 times I've started like restaurant jobs.
Are we keeping this in the podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't really care.
What a transition.
Yeah, it was such like
Can you describe this transition for me, Carl?
it was such like a businessy, like, yes.
Yes. Now beef steakhouse.
Yeah. The couple times I've started like restaurant jobs, I always start off really quiet. Like I said, I like to observe first before I act.
Probably smart, considering
Considering my proclivities.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'm always quiet, and then like I'll kind of feel out, all right, who's ready for some of my jokes? And then like there's always 1 or 2 people I'm like, they probably appreciate it, and then I make the jokes quietly. And I don't even make it to them, but I make sure they're in earshot, and then I try to like I always just try to like, I don't know, not mess with them, but I don't know. I do like messing with people in like a harmless way, like, I'm freaking weird, what are you gonna do about it? And they seem to appreciate it. Like the phrase I get a lot is like, what's going on in your head?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like, I don't know, man. And then just kind of make them more comfortable with it, and it's just fun because I think a lot of people want to just be silly and dumb and weird, but they may not have had the outlets, or they haven't had the opportunities, to feel comfortable acting that way. And I'm like, nah, with me, I want you to be silly like all the time.
Yeah,
I want you to feel open
Let
to be
loose.
silly.
Don't put clamps on your brain.
Yeah, I think that's there for everybody. And ultimately, I think it's a good exercise in creativity.
Yeah,
To just kind of like, it's almost like just taking out the governor on like a motor or something.
Yeah.
Just kind of like let everything flow and be reactive. And I think I don't know how that has affected me in other ways, but
I can't speak for the negative effects of this,
yeah.
but
the science just isn't there yet.
well, I think that I'm kind of the same way, but I don't actually think about it. Like, I haven't like broken it down. I kind of just do it.
Sure.
Like, usually it's like at conventions and stuff, I'll be like all professional and stuff, and then over time I'm just like start jokingly like hitting on one of my friends, and they'll be like, yeah. I mean, they take it as a joke too, but I think they like, I don't know. It's weird just how
Those
like,
restraining orders are just jokes, big pranks.
yeah, big pranks. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't think it's a bad thing though it can't be a bad. If that's what you want to do, then it's got to be healthy. If that's who you are at your core.
I feel like, do you remember the show Freakazoid as a kid?
That sounds so familiar.
It was like this blue guy. He definitely was.
He found clues with his owner Joe in the house. Is that no? Okay. Mm-mm. Different show.
It was, I think, under the umbrella of like, oh my gosh, what are they? The Animaniacs? I think they had a crossover episode or something at one point. And it was like the same vibe of like just wackiness, just straight up like the guy would just appear randomly. He could like, I don't know. He didn't follow the laws of the universe the same way everybody else did, and he used it to just like mess with people. And I loved it. It resonated with me so much. Like, absurdity is a form of comedy that it's not like random XD comedy.
Mm-hmm.
There is like a difference. I think like Will Smith is someone, not Will Smith, Will Ferrell is someone who like
LOLXD Will Smith.
Yeah, rar, I'm Will Smith.
Epic.
Yeah. See, I think Will Ferrell is someone who pulls off that like absurdist sort of comedy very well. There's like a balance to it of grounding it, but also like it has a spine to it, but it is also like very out there.
Sure.
But I don't know. I just love it because a lot of it does rely on like, I guess, reactions.
But I think that's the difference between like the absurdist, or I guess that's what you call it, like random humor. Yeah.
There's random humor, and then there's like absurdism.
Yeah, and I think that again, I think every episode I mentioned this. It's the box.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
right.
Where is it in the box?
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, thank you, are and Zach Galifianakis, Tim and Eric,
Steve
Carell. They're all like on the outside of that box, and they're pushing the limitations of it.
Yeah, and it's still relatable for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. No, I like that the box keeps recurring because it just points to how strong of an idea it is.
It's crazy. Like, yeah, I learned that from a book by. He has a book called Lynchpin.
Donkey Kong.
Yeah, it's Donkey Kong. Yeah, thank you. He put out a book called Lynchpin, and he talks about. I think that, like, again, like the absurdist humor versus random humor. Like the random humor is like just nowhere in the box. It's just like there's no like maybe sometimes it'll hit because like it's random and it'll be inside the box,
it's more
or maybe
probability based.
Right, right, exactly. But with absurdists, it's like, okay, they understand where that box is.
There's reasoning, there's focus to like how you're trying to be silly.
Right.
And I think silliness in general is like a very important aspect of life. I think everyone should try to be a little silly sometimes. I think that's why SpongeBob is so popular. It celebrates silliness and like there isn't a point other than like it made you laugh and smile.
Yeah. There's something weird about like yeah, we could talk like theory about all of this stuff all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, Patrick Starr's delivery on things is just so funny.
Yeah.
Like
that just comes down to idea and execution.
But yeah, like I don't even know how to define execution. I'm like
I think that
I think that's something that you can't really like pin down. I think that's something that somebody just has to feel out and understand how that feels. Like Steve Martin will always say, like he tries not to think about comedy too much.
Exactly. I think it's one of those things. It's a lot more subconscious because it's perception based, and because of that, it's based on people's experiences and their subjective life up to that point.
Yeah.
It is interesting that a lot of it is very universal, but it's why some people just don't find it funny. Their subjective world didn't give them the tools to, that find that.
Do you mean like people finding like Steve Martin funny, or do you mean like somebody who's like not good at it?
The first one, like the reason, like if Steve Martin, I think he's hilarious. Most people would agree, but I'm sure there's people out there who just don't like him.
Yeah,
and like that just because humor is subjective, but there are a lot of universals to it, which is why on the whole.
Yeah, it's hey, I mean like honestly, and the other thing is like it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about outreach and like trying to get famous or like get a following or something like that.
Right.
I find it better to have my group of 5 friends texting, sending them dumb memes that are way outside the box, but our box is outside of the box, Like our box is like very, very far outside.
It's like it's boxes and boxes as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from experimentation, seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I guess the box is definitely relative to like, yeah, there's a world box for sure. There's like what everybody in the world would understand. But then there's also like, okay, what if we cut that in half? What if we or break that down into only people in the US?
Yeah, just zoom in.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, maybe this box is way over here. It's only a part of this box that we'll actually get that understanding.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a very diverse episode.
Yeah. I'm glad that I was able to pull it back to the outreach thing again, because otherwise it was, oh God.
Sweating.
Yeah. Yeah, but with just like your outreach is very relative to, you don't need to be like Steve Martin level funny,
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's also just about like finding a few people that have the same sense of humor with you as you, and like building a smaller relationship like that. And honestly, the people that have those smaller relationships are, I'm gonna bet, is a lot more fulfilled than somebody like Steve Martin, or it kind of depends, I'm sure, but
or at least like assuming Steve would have like a smaller group of people that he cares about more,
and he probably does for sure.
That like that's more fulfilling than the worldwide. Although that's gonna be nice,
Yeah, for sure.
All these people think I'm funny.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
Us over here, we're just like poopy on Windows. And Steve Martin's like, wow, I'm glad I'm not friends with those guys.
Disgusting. Ew.
I'm Steve Martin. What do you think of my impression, Steve?
It's good.
It's real good. Real good.
Real good. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Come hang out with us on the Discord server in the description below. Delete me.